too many streaming services? Well, with a 1-2 combo, Philo's
reality with the Stairway to Heaven concept. I'm going to say archetype. And before we start, I forgot we need to put a poll up because I'm sure you guys would appreciate that. Since the title is a question, and we'll let you guys have at it in the chat as well. You know what? Let's end that. Let's end that real quick. I just thought about it. That's not a good one. Let's put a third option. Hold up, everybody. That ain't the way that's supposed to go. This is the way it's supposed to go. Now that we got the poll up, I'm gonna do my thing on my end. I'm gonna let y'all have the poll out there, and I'm gonna focus over here. So I wanna go into like what is it that I know, because when people say, well, I'm a Gnostic, I know I don't believe. Well, people believe Jesus was a real man. The reason they believe it because there's no proof, there's no way you can know it, so it's based upon faith and belief. And I don't care what church you go to, they're gonna tell you you need faith, you need belief, because there isn't enough data to deem it a fact. So it's still a religious belief. But the thing is this: if you choose Jesus being a real man, you have to believe. But if you choose Jesus being an archetype, it's knowledge behind this archetype that you can actually know. Now, the question is, do you know it or you don't? If you know the knowledge, you're in the know, you're a Gnostic. You're part of the Gnosis. If you don't, you're a part of the church, the papacy, and the belief system that they call Christ. But there is two totally different things going on. We're going to break them down. One of them relates to an entity called the church trying to steal your power. One of them relates to the ancestors who were the original creators of these archetypes trying to reveal your power. I'll drop a bomb on that one. All right? And I'm going to show y'all what I mean by that here. And before we get into anything, when we say the word Gnostic, right? A lot of people may say, well, excuse me, they may say, well, what happened to the Gnostics? How was they silenced? Boom, a little history of the Gnostics. You know what I'm saying? So here's a detailed, compelling lesson about what the Gnostics taught. And not necessarily what they taught, but what they stood for. Just a little bit about Gnosticism before we start deciphering Christ and the symbolism, if that's okay with y'all. So when we talk about a concept called the Kundalini, I don't know if many of you all are familiar with it, but this was the original teaching behind the Christ archetype. So the core thesis of what Gnostics thought about Jesus, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to blend ancient history, esoteric symbolism, and power dynamics in a way that's engaging. It's going to be thought-provoking. So check this out, right? The ancient Gnostics, right? My camera on? Oh, yeah, I'm still on live. So the ancient Gnostics, they taught that salvation is basically an inner awakening. Now, let me explain something to you. When we talk Gnosticism, Gnostics predate the church. They predate the concept of Gnosticism, predates the concept of Christianity and a Messiah. Do me one little instant favor. Drop a 1 in the chat room if everything rocking smoothly. Now check this out, guys. Take it in. I'm dropping none but Jews. I'm finna continue. So The concept of resurrection is an ancient concept that predates Christ itself. So now what we're going to get into is how the ancients taught about resurrection prior to Christ. Why that's important, so you can see how they were silenced and what exactly the church did to get us where we at today. Because what the church represent is a institutionalized belief system that is rising up at a certain time on the earth to become the government authority. And I have several videos on that. When I'm done with this stream, I'll add those in the video description area because I forgot. And if I forget, then remind me in the comment section if you're watching this on a replay and you notice it. I do watch the comments. But this represents a time when the Gnostics were silenced, is a time when the church doctrine was reaching a point of military power, popularity, the majority rule, and they were going on crusades. Now the question is, who were the people that was being burnt at the stake? We finna talk about them. They were the Gnostics. These are the same people being crucified in the theological setting today. Why were they being crucified? Well, the church represent the beginning of messiahs, saviors, something to save you, right? Because why? What does Jesus really represent in the way that the papacy and the church teach him to us? As a literal figure that walked the earth. He represents a savior for all mankind, basically the symbol of sin that manifested, took the brunt of all sin. We're going to get into all that. That's important for where I'm going to go later. Jesus represents a savior figure. There were many before him, and all pagan. Why pagan, Sanchez? Because anything other than self-consciousness is God consciousness. You have two things that represent the Gnostics versus the church. The Gnostics were using archetypes to teach about the self. The church was taking the archetypes literally to hide your power. So I'm going to go back here. Let me take a minute here. Because I think what'll be dope while I'm doing this, to throw the thumbnail up and do a split screen here for y'all so we can see here. Bam. Yeah, so let's get into this. So, and we're not gonna get on this thumbnail yet. I just want it there while I talk for now. Remember that Moses was part of the Gnosis. The word wise man means knowledgeable one. And it just meant you have always had two people on the earth. People that took the archetypes literally, they became believers and they lacked the knowledge of self, and they start believing in outside saviors and messiahs. The world powers catered to that. That's the invention of the world powers. There was a new institution arising on the earth that wanted to control the minds of the masses and reduce them to a level of thinking on a peasant level. And the only way they can do that was to get rid of the ancient symbols that would make them think like gods and put them on a very advanced way of thinking. So how did they do that? They went around with physical force, and it took a lot of misrepresentation of these symbols to where the Gnostics was using these symbols to teach about the Kundalini serpent energy inside of us. And the church said, listen, in order for us to hide that beautiful truth and keep them in a low state, we're going to make them take these archetypes literally. That way they will believe in outside entities for their power versus knowing that this God character represents your inner power, which is what Gnosticism is founded on. And we finna get deep into that. So basically, in a nutshell, the church represents the rise of God consciousness. And before that, what you had was self-consciousness, the knowledge of self. Now you have the knowledge of God and quoting scriptures, these scripture quoting behind these scripture quoting cats. You know what I'm saying, man? And taking it literally. So There's so much to unpack, I just don't know where to begin. Let's continue with the history of Gnosticism and how they were silenced before we get deep and start getting into the symbolism. The church represent an institutionalized authority that wanted to rise up over everyone that wanted a Messiah. Then they was given one, the government. Because the thing about it is, the first Messiahs taught that the only way you can access heaven is through them. Christ ain't the first one to teach that. So there were Messiahs that the church had that was said that you cannot access the heavens unless you go through them. So the church represented a mediator coming to the earth, a mediator in between man and the heavens. And before that, there was no mediator. Shout out to Dolph. Oh, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that, for real, man. Salutes back to you. So the church represents a mediator. And before that, see, why did we need a mediator? What was the threat that the Gnostics proposed? The Gnostics taught every human liberation, meaning the knowledge of ascension. That was the knowledge of the Kundalini rising. So if you look up Kundalini rising, this was the original knowledge that people was teaching before Christ. Before it was taught that Christ would be lifted up or Christ would be risen, it was taught that the Kundalini within yourself would be risen. So Kundalini rising refers to the awakening of dormant spiritual energy, often depicted as a serpent at the base of the spine. We all should be familiar with this, so I don't really have to do too much reading. We need to get the basis of Gnosticism here. So Jesus is an archetype, is a personification and a symbol of this spiritual force, this energy that is at the base of all of our spines. All right? That right there is the foundation of Gnosticism, because you need to understand what people was teaching about the resurrection and the one that would be risen up prior to Christ. So there is a reason that I got the symbol of Moses on the far right. That symbol right there, and this is what I'm going to do for you guys, because I actually don't want to be leaving the stream. I can shrink myself small for y'all. Try a little something different. Hold up. Hold on. Okay. That works. All right, so, well, now I'm in the way. Hold on a second, everybody. Let me try to move my camera real quick. If I can't, then fine. I'll just get off the stream. My bad. So, yeah, we'll just take that off. But let's get back to what I'm saying here. Gnostics taught that salvation, because we got to understand salvation prior to Christ. You didn't need a savior because there was nothing to save you from. The people who didn't know that Christ represented their own soul resurrecting out of their own body now believe that only one man resurrect and everyone else got to be saved through him, if that make any sense. And that was the purpose of the church, to make everyone believers versus knowers. At first, everyone knew that your soul ascends out of your body to heaven when you die. It was that simple. The resurrection story wasn't deep, and it didn't have a mediator. But without a mediator, there's no control. Because if the church want to scare you with hell, and I'm teaching you, hey man, when you die, your soul is just going to rise up to a higher plane and continue where you left off at. This is what the Gnostics was teaching. Just like Christ continued to live on, but in his astral body from another dimensional plane. So that's called the hereafter. You're here after you die, but you're on a different bandwidth Same space, different time, if you will, outside of this time. But the thing is this right here. If you don't know this knowledge of self, when you read these Gnostic stories, you will take them literally, and that's what the church, that's the work of the church and social engineering over years. For us to take archetypes literally, and that right there takes the knowledge out of the symbol or the personification. All right? So that was the whole point. Extract the knowledge from the symbols. Extract the knowledge from these personifications. What kind of knowledge, Sanchez? The knowledge of self. Now what do we got? The knowledge of God, the knowledge of some wrathful dude in the sky. But the thing about the church, people lost the knowledge of them being gods, so they became worshipers of gods, and those gods gave their power to earthly authorities, and this is how the church established government over the masses. This is very important to understand the turning point in Gnosticism when we were knowers versus now being believers. The church can't have a fear tactic doctrine of you being burning in hell forever if Gnostics are around, because Gnostics teach that when you die, it ain't no hell. Hell is you coming back here repeating if you didn't get the knowledge of self that the Gnostics was given. This inner awakening was the thing that activated this dormant energy at the base of the spine, according to the Gnostics. So, the concept of resurrection, according to the Gnostics, was dealing with simply you passing on, continuing your school or your journey of reincarnations to explore and learn yourself till you reach the point of godhood. It was beautiful. There was none threatening you. The concept of some burning you or rewarding you, that was given by the church trying to establish order over the minds. To do that, they had to attack the Gnostics, because the Gnostics taught a very liberating message when it comes to salvation, that no matter what you go through in this earth realm, that it will get better in your next life, and better and better. And that was an old term. It get better with time. And that saving the best for last, which is what the sunnum bonum or heaven is all about. So one don't reach perfection in one lifetime. They reach it through a series of self-exploration, which is what the Gnostics taught. The church came along and taught that you study about some wrathful God and serve him and he'll save you from some hellfires. And they changed everything. And so the ancient Gnostics taught that, again, salvation was an inner awakening, not you finding favor in some gate guard who might burn you, he might let you live. That is what the church did to control people. So Gnostics taught salvation was an inner awakening, not obedience to external authorities. Central to their teachings was the Kundalini energy, symbolized as a serpent rising up the spine. In some cultures, this is called a tree of life. And this serpent rising up the spine was to awaken divine consciousness. The serpent rising up out of the body is like the human rising up out of the covers, getting up out the bed to wake up. So these teachings were deliberately suppressed by emerging religious and political empires that saw inner liberation as a threat to outer control. What exactly did the Gnostics teach? They taught inner knowledge. Gnostic comes from the Greek word gnosis, meaning knowledge through experience, not belief, y'all, not belief. Notice that, experience. Gnostics taught that the divine spark resides within each person. It ain't up in the sky and you gotta beg for it to enter you, like receiving the Holy Ghost. You are the Holy Ghost. You are a being of light. You come here with the Holy Ghost. Someone told you came here as a sinner, and we forgot that we're light beings, but we never stopped being them. Gnostics taught that the divine spark resides within each person, and must be awakened through self-knowledge, meditation, and inner discipline. What else did Gnostics teach? That the Kundalini equals the serpent power, or what some call serpent energy, which is why I chose this thumbnail. Though the term Kundalini is from the Hindus, and we finna show you how much of Hindu influenced Christianity, because that's where the term Kundalini come from. But what exactly is the Kundalini? Let's show a picture of this energy at the base of the spine. Why is it at the base of the spine, but also in the middle of the brain at the same time? This is gonna get very interesting as we move on into the stream, because this serpent energy is at the base of the spine, but not at the spine of your actual body. It's at the spine of your God body. And then it works its way up through all of the heavens, because and we're gonna get into this later. Let's finish reading this real quick, and we'll go back into this. Gnostics saw the spinal column as a ladder to heaven, similar to Jacob's ladder in the Bible, where divine energy ascends through 7 spiritual centers called chakras. Now we got to stop and start teaching. Now we got to stop and do a little teaching. All right, hold on a second. So we're going to read that again, and now we finna do some symbolism for y'all. Thank you for being patient. Make sure you all hit the like and share button on your way in. Okay. All right, everyone, give me a minute. I want to stay organized for real. So every slide I show, I'm going to put it in a folder so I don't be repetitive. We ain't going to go back to it. People can rewind the video because I got a lot to unpack. I'm going to read this again to y'all. Gnostics saw the spinal column as a ladder to heaven, similar to Jacob's ladder in the Bible, where divine energy ascends through 7 spiritual centers. Now take a look at the collage right here. You can see Buddha inside of a tree. You can see the Pharaoh Aten in the tree. You can see the god Anu down there coming up out of this tree. You can see the Pharaoh and called the Jedi pillar, which is his spinal cord. You can look that up. And we have this story of Jack and the Beanstalk. I have him there because the name Jack, people, the name Jack is the name Jacob. When you talk about Jacob's ladder, you're talking about Jack's beanstalk. These stories and folklores were told for so many years and generations in so many forms. Let's pull up an image of Jacob's ladder. And let's show you what the Gnostics was teaching. So this is what the Gnostics was teaching everyone. That this ladder represents your spinal cord. Now, I know right now you don't get it. Like, what's up with the spinal cord, Sanchez? Why does everyone keep talking about the spinal cord? Stay with me. You'll see in a minute. This is biblical artwork, Jacob's ladder. And what we're seeing is Jacob's avatars ascending to heaven. So there are several versions of you in 7 heavens, according to the ancestors. And each of these yous are waiting to unite at the top, at the highest heaven, to culminate all of that energy into what's called God. God's energy was split up or separated into 7 balls of light, and they all got to come back together in order for God to resurrect in the highest heaven. We're going to go deep into that. We want to realize what we want to take from this part is that the story of Jack and the Beanstalk, the story of Jacob's ladder, there's another Jack that they tell you about. His name is Jack in the Box. Sanchez, what's up with all this Jacob's ladder? It's because the word Jack, the etymology of the word Jack comes from the word yak. The J was pronounced with a Y sound. It was yak. And the yak originate from the original form of the word, which is yak, which was originally yoke. So Sanchez, why is yoke in a box? Why is jack? Why is yoke or yak in a box? What is this jack in a box concept? Here it is right here. See, a yolk is the center part of an egg. It's a yellow ball. And the ancestors said that the pineal gland, the ball of light that is seated in the crown, in the brain, is that thing that will leave the body, which is the real you, and that will go into another body and seat itself and observe and experience. The word yak is dealing with Santa. This is the god of the North Pole. It resides in the middle, seated in the middle of creation, in between Joachim and Boaz, which is the left and right brain. We got to talk about this Kundalini energy and the spinal cord position being a central location. The spinal cord is in the center of the body at the North Pole. And this god was called Santa, which is the word center. Because before they talk about this being some beard wearing god, it was simply a deity that fell from the North Pole and came to the earth realm with spiritual gifts, and he couldn't go back to the North Pole until he delivered those gifts or manifested its purpose. We're going to go into that in a minute. Just understand that jack is the word yak, which is come from the word yoke. And that yellow little ball in the middle of your head surrounded by water is just like the yellow little ball in the middle of an egg surrounded by the clear water, which is your brain is 80% water. Think symbolic, fractal, pattern, and patterns, because nature is speaking to us in patterns when we deal with Gnosticism and syncretism. Let's go back to this image here and let's talk about this. So the serpent symbolism. The serpent in Eden wasn't always viewed as evil. That was only when the church came to hide the knowledge. Gnostics taught that the serpent represented wisdom and that it helped humanity awaken from ignorance. So if you read the Gnostic Gospel of Philip, it says that the serpent taught Adam and Eve true knowledge, not sin. It only became sin when the church went on the inquisitions and it's only been taught that the serpent represents sin recently. And it's the youngest teaching. If you look around the world, everybody else is worshiping the serpent, y'all. Everyone else worshiping the serpent. When the pagans saw us worshiping the serpent, they demonized it as Satanism, and they said, oh, they worshiping the serpent. But they didn't understand the knowledge of self. The reason they thought it was Satanism is because the original spirit of Satan, the one they called Satan, was the one that thought he was God. He thought he was God. So the Gnostics were the people who were worshiping the serpent or teaching about the serpent, and they were also teaching you are a god. Okay? So you see how the pagans who didn't want their societies to have knowledge, inner knowledge, because the church need its people to be dumbed down, tithing, jumping up and down, believing in fairy tales, belief systems. Inner gnosis is a threat to their system. So they demonize these concepts so much so that even when I say it today that our original spiritual system was the worship of the serpent and we are gods, it seems so satanic and blasphemous, but you're looking at it through the lenses of your enemy, the people who didn't want you to have power. You got to reverse your mindset and realize you're thinking through the mindset of the church member mentality. So this knowledge was taught all around the world, and the serpent brought wisdom. The serpent brought the wisdom to ascend to the heavens, which is why Jack uses the beanstalk to go up to the sky. And another form of the serpent was the beanstalk or the tree of life. Remember that the serpent wasn't always just a serpent. It was also a tree as well in some cultures. And in a lot of cultures, it is a serpent wrapped around a tree like what we see today. So let's continue with the knowledge here, but I want to keep the thumbnail up while we read here this introduction. Give me 1 second too, guys. I ain't gonna lie, I'm hot and I got my fan on, but it ain't even pointed toward me. So let me go ahead and do that and I'll be right back.
Sánchez cocinando.
We will be right back with you.
Just one who's out there in the fight to teach. Bro Sanchez.
Thank y'all for that.
The story
Thank y'all for that. So I hope my fan ain't that loud, but what happened to the Gnostic teachings? So remember in 1945, the Nag Hammadi library was discovered in Egypt, and it was a treasure trove of Gnostic scriptures. Let me pull that up for y'all because everyone like to talk about the book of Enoch, but these books that was taken from the Bible are just as important, and you're gonna see why. So texts like the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary, the Apocryphon of John, they all reveal the mystical symbolic Jesus who teaches inner transformation, not blind belief. So let me break some down to you. In the Nag Hammadi, which is the original Bible, the untampered with, not the Freemasonic King James, right? But in the, matter of fact, let me get a mic check. Everyone drop a 1 if y'all can hear me good right now, because I just cut my fan on and I'm wondering if y'all can still hear me good, because I really got it loud in here. Oh yeah, I got that fan real loud. Drop a 1 if y'all can hear me over it and I'll continue. Because the fan is very loud on my end, but I got a lot of filtering on my mic to where I'm trying to see if it's working for y'all in. Okay, so I'm getting 1s. Okay, let me continue, my bad. All right, so like I was saying about the Nag Hammadi, right? The Nag Hammadi Bible, it is deep because I'm finna really break down these words, right? The word nag is dealing with the word Nagini, because the Gnostics, right? The Gnostics were Nagas. You see the play on the word? When you say Enoch, knock, 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 the Nag and Enoch come from the Nag Hammadi, the Anunnaki. These people were no mythological creatures. What they trying to get y'all, the reason they want y'all going into the Anunnaki conspiracy is because that's a new religion to hide the fact that the Anunnaki was another name that they gave to the Kundalini. What do they teach about the Anunnaki? That the Anunnaki is able to leave the earth and come back, just like Christ is able to leave and come back in the with the out-of-body experience. We are spiritual beings, guys. We're multidimensional. We have a soul that can leave this body and go into other ones. And the name of that soul was called a nag. Now, you got to keep in mind, this is where it's going to get very deep, because who named this thing a nag? The church shortened the word Nagini. Basically, the word Nagini is shortened into nag, but a lot of people see this word as like a pest. Like, in other words, when it comes to the church authority, this knowledge is a threat, it's a headache. It nags them. So you can even see how the word nag is associated with something bad. you nagging me, because a nagga or a nega or naka, a naki, or, like we're saying here, a nagini, these were the spiritual people who was written about by the Gnostics, who had the inner light that can transmute the physical plane. And the church wanted everyone to be equal. It didn't want some of us to have a spiritual gifts and others not. So it basically dumbed everybody down. Even the people with the light, you wouldn't know who is who today. And so it's easy to control everybody that way when we all the same. So let's talk about the Gospel of Thomas, right? Because what's interesting about the name Thomas, right? The name Thomas is related to the word tomb, like the grave site, the burial site. So in the book of Thomas is talking about resurrection and the soul getting up from the tomb or getting up from the grave like Christ. And the name Thomas is associated with the word tomb and someone getting up from the tomb. And it's all about these people that can leave the earth realm and climb up out of here and access the heavens. Not everyone can do it. So ye are the gods. And check this out. Here is a Gnostic drawing that shows basically a soul pulling themselves out of all of the underworlds. Let me break this down to you. What we see here is a map of all of the underworlds, or what we call parallel realities, right? And you're looking at the Yggdrasil tree of life from a top-down view. Sanchez, don't throw words at us and leave us in the dark. What do you mean, Yggdrasil tree of life, man? Come on. All right, break that down, Sanchez. Well, in the Bible, they talk about the North Pole with a serpent wrapped around a tree. That existed before the Christians. Here it is in the ancient Nordic story. We can see the serpent wrapped around a tree. What does the serpent do? It gives wisdom. The serpent was never an evil entity. It was Papa Lekba, the god of the crossroads. What this serpent does, it takes a baby soul into the matrix so that the baby soul can figure out who it is. Before you came to this earth, you had no knowledge of self. You were like an angel in heaven with no personality. You were a baby little ball of light, but you was just like a bunch of other babies up here in Asgard, according to the Nordic. This is the astral garden. And when a new god is born in Asgard, they fall down here and they gotta learn how to become a god before they can rise back up to the home of the Aesir. But the concept of the soul going into the matrix, into the underworld, it's because the soul don't have an identity. You like a blank canvas when you start off, just a pure ball of white light. And when you enter Midgard, you start to develop who you are from your childhood. Everything that happens in this simulation is to unlock and awaken this kundalini that the Gnostics was talking about. And that light is basically, say, the ultimate version of you. So when we come into the simulation in the underworld, we got to go through good and bad in order to manifest this version of ourselves. You have to learn in a negative way and a positive way. You got to make mistakes and get punished. You got to do good and get rewarded. Because when you enter the underworld, duality exists, and we'll hop back on that in a minute. So if you're looking at this tree from a top-down view with all these little bubbles, all these little whirls spinning around it, you get this image. But what we see is that someone busting up out of all these worlds. This is a very simple piece of art to decode. It doesn't take any kind of theological expert because they are the imposters anyway. What this shows us, and I'm gonna open up your third eye, and this is what I want you. I brought some collages to help with this today. Okay, let me move this slide, and I'm finna really get deep with the symbolism to open up you guys' third eye. So check this out. What I want you to see with this Gnostic artwork here, see the circle as the earth realm. See it like Darth Vader's Death Star. Because People, like when I tell you everything we do was turned into Hollywood movies, folklores, fairy tales, but it all goes back to the knowledge of self. The Darth Vader Death Star is literally the Pokemon concept, which will release the monster out of your body. But if you think Sanchez just reaching, you can see this Death Star at the Vatican right here. It's called a spear within a spear, and we're gonna get into that in a minute. We ain't ready for that yet. So let's go back here though with decoding this and the concept of a Pokemon creature busting up out of a Pokemon ball is what the Gnostics showing you right here. Let me show you. What you call them, a Pikachu? I'm gonna put monster, Pokemon monster. See, because what I do, I'm a syncretist. My gift is I have my third eye allow me to make connections that everyone can't make. So what happens is you have this Pokemon ball and it's open. Let me see, because I really want this thing to show y'all this. When you open up that Pokemon ball, that is the left and right brain opening up to release the light that I just showed you, the pineal gland. So the left and right brain is like two doors that's closed. Think of two gates, the big gate, and the gate is closed. When you open up your mind, you release the light. You see that? Opening your mind, not thinking in the box. How do you think this person get outside this bubble? So listen, you see, they said Jesus represent the sun, right? But they not talking about the outer sun outside. They talking about the inner sun that's inside of you, y'all. That's why when they talk about Jesus dying and resurrecting, it's really about this little ball of light inside of you that goes down into the underworld and comes back out like Jesus did. He was in heaven, he went to earth, and he rose up with more power than what he came with, because this is a school to, and guess what? Knowledge is power when you get up out this school. So when this light, when your left and right brain opens up, this light pops out. And another way of telling that story is the Pokemon story right here, which is another story that they told about the genie inside of the lamp. So now you see why the word Nagini relates to the word genie, and why I made this collage for y'all, because in the left right here is the god Saturn, which is the original Nagini, the Lord of the Rings. But I want you to really take a minute and look at this collage, because there are so many synchronicities. In this collage, in the top right corner, you got the god Anu busting up out the simulation. You got the goddess Alma Mater. She's busting up out the box. That's the Jack in the Box concept right there. Her name is Alma Mater, and that's what you get when you get the little scroll. When you're very smart, you become an Alma Mater. But you find out that the word mater or mature is literally dealing with spiritual awakening and you becoming a mature God. Remember, we are baby souls. You're a baby God. You like a baby butterfly. And what do baby butterflies do? They go inside of cocoons. So us baby souls went inside of this matrix, which is an incubator, to transform us into a butterfly, which is a God in the high heavens with our ancestors and forefathers. We only make it to them through transformation. This is what the Gnostics taught. This ain't a belief system. This is advanced spiritual knowledge that ain't for your grandma and it ain't for Pastor Porkchop.
Sánchez cocinando.
This ain't for Pastor Pig Feet, man. Now check this out, right? The goddess that you see over here in the right corner, that is the goddess Orisha. And her name, well, Oshun is her name. Ocean is what the name means, Oshun, right? And I'll get into that in a minute. Below this goddess right here, that is a book written by a known Freemason. It's called the Holy Mountain, talking about removing the veil and basically transmuting the physical plane. And to the left of that, you can see the Jack in the Box concept, what all of the Masons, everyone know about this but us. And to the left of that, you have spiritual ascension artwork. And just, you can see the Dogon goddess Amma, which was the original version of Alma, in the top right corner. I hope this ain't too complicated with you guys. But the goddess that you see in the yellow, she is a Yoruban form of the Greek goddess Alma Mater up here, coming up out the box. The Greeks didn't know about resurrection till later, which is why they demonized it. It was spooky to them. They needed a savior, a hero. They like little children that scared of the dark. They scared of what they are or what we are. Some people say, well, Sanchez, they're scared of what we are because they don't have a soul. Hello. Some people say they scared of what they are. They're babies that's not ready to be grown yet. That can be debated. But you can see Noah leaving the ark. The story of Noah leaving the ark was a story of the genie leaving the lamp. So the oldest story of resurrection was the genie story. And most of us look at the genie today, and we don't even know that the genie is one of the oldest deities in antiquity. And the concept of the genie leaving the lamp was told, it's you leaving the earth realm. The earth is like a big old lamp, right? A big terrarium. And see, you leaving this place was the story of the genie leaving the lamp. But when you say the word Nagini, because this deity right here is called a Nagini, and it shows a soul that's ascending up out of the earth realm. And if you pull up any image of Enoch, you will see what I mean, that the Nok in Enoch is really N-A-G, which is Nag for Nagini, because Enoch is a Nagini. He is a Greek Romanized version of the genie leaving the lamp. So the genie leaving the lamp. Now, what color is the genie, everybody? It is blue. Now, what color is the Statue of Liberty? The Statue of Liberty is blue. And what is Enoch? Enoch is the Statue of Liberty. When we see Enoch holding up the torch, remember what the torch is. It's the soul seated in the base of the brain. Why is the torch on a stick? Why is the Statue of Liberty holding a ball of fire on a stick? Well, let's go back to the human body real quick, because I hope we didn't forget that the ball of fire at the top of the stick is the soul seated at the height at the top of the spinal cord. So if you can look at this all together, and I think I want to grab my board today. I'm feeling myself, right?
Sánchez cocinando.
Check me out, right? So the capital I is God, the lowercase I is the body, the capital I is the energy that flows through the body. I'm gonna show you what I mean. You see, because the spinal cord looks like basically like this, but at the top of the spinal cord is, and what we have is the lowercase I. I for individual. I did this. I did that. I for what? All saying I. Look at the symbol. What is the capital I? The capital I is actually the energy that flows through the lowercase I, which is God powering Jesus. What do you mean, Sanchez? Let me show you the energy that flows through the body and around the body. And you will see that it indeed forms that capital I, which is the symbol of fire, and fire is just another way of saying fire, the etheric flame of the soul, because the word kundalini is the word candle candle, kundal candle, we're talking about a flame, a fire, an ethereal light. You can see the capital I. This is a capital I, but you see that in the middle of the capital I is the lowercase I, which is the human. So let's draw this again and show you some advanced Gnosticism. See, we've been taught backwards. We've been taught that inside of the body is the soul. That's half teaching. Inside of the body and around the body is the soul. The soul exists within you and around you. It's sandwiching the body in. Here is the body. It's the central nervous system, which is where the program of the simulation is being ran from. And I'm going to show you some sacred geometry and symbolism with that in a minute. So here is the body. You see how the body shapes like a lowercase I? It shapes like a lowercase I. But surrounding that, you have this capital I. You have this big old capital I, but in the middle of that capital I, you have the lowercase I. So you have Buddha inside the tree is what some cultures would, if you want to see what I'm doing here, we can go back to the original collage here. When you have the capital I housing the lowercase I, another way to put it right here. You can see what the pharaoh is inside of a capital I. You can see how it all makes a capital I. That's the hourglass of time. Capital I, the hourglass of time. Buddha is in time. He's in Chronos, which is Saturn, which is the ripple effect. What you see on the right, you're wrapped up in time, but time isn't infinite. It has an ending point, which is when the veil will be removed. Because this veil, and I'm gonna show you why in a minute. So you are a lowercase I, and the world around you is this capital I. That's what you call in God, but that is really your sleeping God body in another plane, waiting on this I to die so it can wake up. Just like a dream. In a dream, in order for the you to wake up in the bed who's sleeping, the guy in the dream got to die. So in a dream, maybe you fall off a mountain, maybe you get shot. Something happens in the dream to wake you back up in the bed. The one in the dream is the capital, the one in the dream is the lowercase I. And the lowercase I being in the dream, it's the soul being in the body. The body is the dream world. It represents your avatar in the simulation. But the simulation around you is literally your God body that ain't been activated yet. Just like Buddha. Look, Buddha is asleep in his tree. But that tree is called a Bodhi tree. Why is it called a Bodhi tree? Bodhi is the word body. Because what the Buddhist was teaching was that basically that tree is Buddha's God body, and it can't be activated until the little bitty Buddha inside wake up or die. See, the tree around Buddha is God sleeping. And when God's sleeping, it looked like Buddha meditating, God on his throne, knocked out. And when God's sleeping, God is in his dream world, in the simulation, in a human form, living out a lifetime. When that lifetime over, that's the resurrection, the ascension story that the Gnostics taught about, that we all will be out of here once we learn everything we need to learn, do all of our good and all of our bad. And it wasn't about, in Gnosticism, doing good, being rewarded, doing bad to be punished. Gnostics taught that you live in a simulation like Neo in the Matrix. and that whatever you're gonna do is already written out in a simulation. Ain't no free will. It's divine prophecy and fate. And that the reason everything is written out for you is because your soul already knew everything it needed to do, good and bad, to reach to its better level. So for example, I'm gonna give you example how simple and deep this is, right? Go look in the mirror right now and ask yourself, am I happy with who I am? We know we got more work to do, but right now, when I look back at who I used to be versus who I am right now, I ain't gonna lie, I gotta pat myself on the back, and I still got a lot of work to do though. But if you happy, if you say, man, I'm happy with myself right now, but I ain't satisfied, but I'm happy. That's good. You improving, and you seeing your improvement and mastering yourself. If you feel that way, you owe that to the good and the bad. God giveth and he taketh away, because God is sculpting you. And God may have to add on some clay. God may have to take off some clay. But this process of adding and taking away gonna chisel you out as this perfect version in this furnace, in this incubator that we call Earth. You're like cookie dough in a mold. That's why I'm showing you the lowercase I inside of the capital I. That is Neo in the Matrix. Neo had to go in the Matrix to become a god. He wouldn't have done it no other way. So all gods in Asgard became gods because they climbed the stairway to heaven, like what Jacob is showing. They was initiated into godhood by being expelled from the home of the Aesir, and they had to live out lifetimes in the underworld and master themselves. And once they do that, they can return home like the prodigal son with all power and reclaim their inheritance. Okay? So this is what the Pharaoh is telling us. This became the prodigal son teaching as well. We are the I in the I. Right here, man. This is the fire symbol. Represent fire. When they said we're burning in hell, when they said Satan is burning in hell, this capital I represent the aura around your body, which was spoke of by the ancestors as an ethereal flame. So when they said people are in hell being burnt alive, the ire in fire comes from the word aura. Ire, aura. If you put an F in front of the word aura, you can see how we getting this word fire. But let me show you what I mean. If you can look at human aura, which is Jesus' anointed body, you're on fire right now, man. You can't see yourself because we don't have electromagnetic spectrum goggles. But if you can see the electromagnetic spectrum, everybody with a soul will look like they burning in hell. Earth was hell to the Gnostics because the word hell comes from the fact that your potential and energy is being held down inside of the underworld like a seed in the dirt, in darkness. And the seed got to transform to get out of darkness. It got to grow a tail. The seed got to pierce its way through the dark as a stem and grow its tree to the upper realm past the underworld, just like a seed becoming a tree. The seed that becomes a tree is this little ball of light that's planted in the body. The only way your soul can leave the body is when the light within you start to expand like a seed casing breaking apart, releasing the tree. That's Samson pushing back the two pillars. That's the soul pushing back the left and right brain because it's maturing. And as it matures, it expands and it literally pushes back the left and right brain and leaves duality. This soul, it's the light expanding beyond the left and right brain means that you're not a creature that reasons with a duality. You now think with the third eye. While everyone else say, should I do this? Should I do that? You're thinking how to blend the this with the that and bring your reality to totality. And that's when we start manifesting our will in the matrix like Neo. You're a hybrid. This is the goal, what the Pharaoh is trying to show. See, it's not a war between left and right. It's a merging in between them. And this is why another form of this God is called a demiurge. Take the dem off, take the DE off, it's just merge. This entity is the North Pole God that represents the split in between the brain, and that is the serpent. Once again, we got to go through all of this if we're going to talk Gnosticism and the archetype that we call Christ. The word Christ comes from the word crease. The ancestors did not say you got a split in your brain. They said you got a crease in your brain, or Christos. That meant a line, a split, a tear, a ripping. The ancestors personified the energy that splits the left and right brain into a God called crease, because the word crease represents split, a gap, a tear, a point, a polarizing point. Well, left, right, this meets that. Why is it all important? I'm gonna show you real quick. Watch this. The one that's tearing, that's creating polarity. Here we go right here. He put the crease in the brain. The crease is the Christ. And he is portrayed breaking the bread because the bread was symbolic of the brain. If you look at the brain, it looked like a loaf of bread. You ever seen a whole loaf of bread? See, the ancestors were speaking symbolism. You look at a whole loaf of bread from a top-down view, and guess what it looked like? It looks like the brain. And when you cut the bread, I don't know if y'all familiar with whole loaf bread, but whole loaf bread, it looks like a brain. And when you break it, it looks like the left and right brain. The one that breaks the bread, they got y'all literally breaking bread, but it was symbolism. It was talking about the one that splits the brain into two. That's the serpent on the tree. That's the Pharaoh in between on the tree. The Pharaoh is the serpent. Now that Pharaoh, his name is Aten. If you put an S in front of it, you get Satan, because this is the serpent knowledge that they demonize. The serpent is a sine wave that splits the tree in the middle. So let's go back to this Gnostic artwork so we can start showing you the jack-in-the-box concept even more. This deity that splits the bread, okay, represent the one seated at the North Pole. Look at the North Pole God, Santa, Satan. Christ is Satan. Sanchez, you telling me Jesus is Satan? Yes, before Christ existed, it was a Satan on the cross. And both of them come from God. Satan, before Jesus came to earth as the figure of sin, Satan came to the earth as the representative of sin, but Satan was never considered a bad, evil God. It was considered as the Kundalini energy leaving the higher plane and entering its underworld human experience. And once it's out of the incubator, it'll be a butterfly like a caterpillar out of a cocoon. That's how Christ got wings to go to heaven. Christ then received the power to rise up to heaven to after the cross, because that represents the soul transmutating the physical plane, transformation. It's the knowledge of self, not the knowledge of God. The God was a guide to teach you about yourself, man.
Sánchez cocinando.
Come on now. I'm preaching today, baby. Hit that like button, that share button. We got a lot to talk about. If you think we done, you wrong, man. All right, so share it with a friend. So let's talk about this concept of before Jesus, they told many stories about dudes resurrecting on top of a mountain or something. Dude resurrected on top of Mountain Calvary, or mountain this or mountain that. Before Jesus, the Sumerians told stories about men resurrecting on top of mountains. Here it is right here. Look at here. Jesus resurrected on a mountain, right? A holy mountain. Well, this story is thousands of years before the Jesus story, hundreds of thousands, about a man resurrecting on top of a holy mountain in between two thieves, might I add you. So this was teaching about yourself, your soul leaving the simulation. So this story of remember what the Pharaoh said? The Pharaoh said that the obelisk represent resurrection. And we can see that the obelisk is the North Pole. It ain't some statue in Egypt. The statue that you see in Egypt is a symbol or archetype to teach about what's at the North Pole. When we left Eden, we weren't at the North Pole no more. Remember now, the Dogon and everybody said humans come from the North Pole. Now watch this. At the North Pole, we had all of the knowledge of the universe because we was right by the tree of wisdom and knowledge. Exodus, when we left the North Pole, we fell into ignorance. We left. If you live in a land that got a huge tree to the heavens, ain't nobody gonna be able to teach you nothing. Being born at the North Pole and living in that land by the North Pole gives you the secrets of the universe, because you there, you at the North. That's what the Holy Grail. When we left the North Pole, we needed replicas. We needed something to replicate our original home at the North Pole, and that became Christ, an archetype, Buddha. It became the Pharaoh. But it was all talking about what's really at the North Pole, which is your sleeping God body. If you were to go to the North Pole, it'll be like the movie they cloned Tyrone. You would see a better version of yourself sleep. And you won't be able to touch it or interact with it. And it'll only wake up when this version die. You would cross over from this reality, bandwidth, frequency, into the higher plane. So if you made it to the North Pole, what would be there? You would see a big old like pod, a bubble, and it'll be your God body sleeping. Everyone, when they get to the North Pole, will see their own God body at the same place. It'll be a different version of God perception. Because what's really at the North Pole is a mirror. That's why they call it Meru. And as every soul approaches it, their reflection is in the pod. When you see Neo inside of the pod, it's really his reflected consciousness inside of a bubble of water. And we're going to go into sonoluminescence in a second to show you how that ties into what I'm saying now. But what I want you to realize right now, right, is that the story of resurrection was way more intricate, but it was simple when it's just about your inner light ascending up through the sky vault. And the sky vault represent a hole in the skull. They teach you about this in the medical field. Every baby got a hole in their skull right here. But what happens is you are a newborn baby in a heavenly realm inside of your mama belly, sleep like Buddha. That's what the tree represent, a uterus. But the baby won't be born in the higher realm until you give up the ghost and die in this realm. Time is on pause. All events are tied together. In other words, like Enoch, the moment your soul busts through that that light in the sky, that hole in that Polaris vault, that light represent the baby coming out the womb and being born. You don't remember being asleep for 9 months in the mama's belly. Let me tell you something. When the caterpillar is in a cocoon, it's dreaming of a lifetime. It's dreaming that it's a butterfly. So when it wakes up from the cocoon, it don't gotta learn how to fly. It wasn't wasting its sleep. It was going to flight simulator school in those 9 months. So when the caterpillar transforming into a butterfly, it's literally because it's realizing it is a butterfly in its sleep state. The caterpillar goes into a cocoon and it dreams that it's been born as a caterpillar in a dream world. But somewhere in that dream, it realizes, wait a minute, I'm not a damn caterpillar. I'm one of those things in the sky that's flying around calling itself a butterfly, but I'm the baby version. The moment the caterpillar realizes I'm actually a butterfly, it goes and spins a cocoon. So the caterpillar literally won't go inside of the incubator without the knowledge of self and knowing what it is as a god. If the caterpillar only thinks that it's a human, it won't spin a cocoon. If the caterpillar only thinks, oh, I'm a worm and I'm bound to the ground, the caterpillar won't transform and grow wings. The church did that to you. The church taught everyone you just a flesh and blood human, and Christ is the God that can get wings and fly up there. So that'll be like the church telling all of the caterpillars, you got to worship this one dude who a butterfly, and he can lift you up off the ground and fly you up to the sky. That's called the rapture. This one dude named Christ grew wings. He's a caterpillar that became a butterfly, and he want to save you other caterpillars. So he want to come pick you up and fly you up to heaven, but that's a gate guard because he won't tell you caterpillars, you're a butterfly, you're a god too. You need to transform, spin a cocoon, go inside the ground, go into the darkness like Christ did and come out as the light. That's what Buddha doing. This is what Gnosticism was all about. Spinning a cocoon. We spend time. When people say, at first we was outside of time, then we went inside of time. How did we go inside of time? We spent it. You spend time like money, but think of SPIN, because time is literally an effect of the light of the soul rotating in a spiral, following the path of the torus field, which is how you get the barber pole. And that's what the pharaoh represent in the bottom left corner, the barber pole. Your time will end when the spiraling of your light stops. This is a fading away process. The world around you is similar to what I'm about to show you next. I'm gonna show you something real quick. Let's go to another slide real quick. You see Buddha inside of that tree up there? That's the baby inside of the uterus. But think about this, all moments in time are strung together. The moment that your soul busts through the sky vault, the baby gonna bust out of the female womb in your next life, and you gonna be crying. They slapping you saying, oh, it's a boy. And in this new realm, you're gonna live out another lifetime, and this lifetime gonna be way better than the next one. And each time your life will get better and better until you reach this sonum bonum that the Hebrew talked about, where it just can't really get any better. You go into new states of bliss that's undescribable, right? So it's a stairway to heaven. Not a rapture, not someone dropping you off at the top of the mountain, but a long climb. And that climb is gonna strengthen you, making you better. When you get to the top, you're gonna be worthy to be there. So Buddha represent the consciousness that is always a step ahead of you, meaning that your higher self is ahead of your lower self, meaning that there's a newborn baby in a heavenly realm. Let me pull out something else to help y'all with this one. This will help you with this one. Here is how the ancestors saw reality with the stairway to heaven concept. I'm going to pull up several cosmologies with the same story. The concept of the stairway to heaven is very old. And what I have here is Polynesian cosmology. Right here you can see individuals climbing the stairway to heaven. There were 7 netters. They turned this cosmology into what's called the step pyramid. The step pyramid represents the stairway to heaven, the steps to ascension, the path of the gods, okay? And you can see that it's 7 steps representing the 7 worlds, the 7 netters, the 7 heavens, 7 chakra layers. And the name of this pyramid is Saqqara, but the word Saqqara is the Egyptian word Shakara, Shakara. So what we call, when we teach about chakras, it was spelled a little different. It was Shakara to American language, Saqqara to Egyptian, and there's another one. The last one is Zikara, Zakara. So you got Shakara, Saqqara, Zakara, Saqqara, Shakara, and then it became to the Sumerian Zikara, and then they added a T on it, it became Ziggurat. But you can take the T off of it. Zikara is Shakara, Zikara, Zikara, Zikara. If you look at a ziggurat, it is a step pyramid. So this is Saqqara. And remember the chakras, the 7 chakras, right? And they shape like a pyramid. You know, let's do the layers. It'll show you what they was teaching here. It's a step pyramid. It's a step pyramid with the 7 primary colors, which is why it's 7 layers. It's 7 layers of the self. And they turned this into a huge pyramid, and they was teaching about the chakras at Shakara or Saqqara. And for the Sumerian, their form of Saqqara was Ziggurat, Ziggurat. But if you pull up the Ziggurat, it's just another step pyramid. It's like a ripple effect. It's their form. It's all the same thing. Everyone on earth was teaching this knowledge, and God got mad. Go read the story of Babel. I'll be doing a video on Babel, because God represent this world authority. The church went around on crusades, splitting up our tongues, giving us different language, divide and conquer. It was a beautiful utopia before the church, where everyone was teaching the knowledge of self about the Shakara through the form of Saqqara, through the Zikara. This is all the same concept right here. The knowledge of ascension. This is Gnosticism 101, climbing the stairway to heaven. And we can see that in very many cultures here. Mesopotamian cosmology there in the bottom right corner. And then you have your Babel Tower in the top right. And the reason I wanted to share those when we deal with the Babel Tower is to walk back to this one, which is your Polynesian cosmos. What the Babylonians was teaching us, let's go back. This is all Babel knowledge that was desecrated. Tearing down the Babel Tower is getting rid of this knowledge. The pharaoh inside of the tree represent rebirth through the womb of the woman, which is why the tree shapes like a uterus. That is Buddha inside of his. Your mama is on a higher heaven. It's several versions of her like it's several versions of you. It's a ripple effect. Meaning when she gave birth to you in the highest heaven, it ricocheted in all of the underworlds. And in order for her baby to get back home, you got to climb the stairway. Your real family, your real mama and daddy is in the upper realm, not here. These are just lower forms of them, just like this a lower form of you. Just like when you in a dream, that's an alternate form of you with an alternate form of your cousins, your brothers. And when you wake up, you got different versions of them. You may say, hey, cuz, I dreamed that you was a crackhead. In that parallel reality, he was. But in this one, he's a pastor. You see? So we are a better title or a better version of the self the higher we climb. Not just you, but all of your loved ones, too. They are better versions of themselves in these higher realities. That's why you became a better version, because all of us influenced the next one. We all drag it's like a disease. Everyone vibrating high in the high levels and we vibrating low in the low levels. And every baby God got to ascend up to those high levels through the many lower versions of the self. This is what the Gnostics taught. This is what Christ represents. God coming into the matrix to learn to get the power, because you can't be God without power. But power isn't given to you, it's earned. And what is power? Knowledge. Knowledge is power. So the soul comes into this school, this simulation, to get the knowledge of self. And with that knowledge comes power, and with that power comes a title. You now are God. And with that title, you are able to access heaven, which is the realm of the gods, which is what we see. And once you're able to access those realms, you are liberated from the simulation, and you exist in this state of totality. But let's talk about resurrection and rebirth, and let's go through a little bit of symbolism here, and we'll get back to a little bit of knowledge of something here. But it's a lot we got to unpack. Now watch this. Christ represent the energy that is flowing through your body, the Kundalini energy. And that Kundalini energy is a spiral. So what did Christ give up? The Holy Spirit. What exactly is the Holy Spirit? It's the holy spiral. The word spirit is the word spiral. Let me show you what it means. See, the reason Christ is a God of the North Pole is because Mount Calvary represents the center of the earth. And I keep showing you guys that. Let me go back to this one. This is taking place at the North Pole. These are deities that taught the resurrection story before Christ. On the right, you got a god named Anu. But they rearranged those words. Let me show you something real quick, because this is important with the god Anu, to understand how there's only one story on the earth. So Anu is really a god called Noah. Anu, you got to rearrange. It was never Anu. It was Noah. There's a female called Nuwa, right? There's a female goddess that predate Noah. Her name is Nuwa. I'm gonna show her. I'm gonna show you right quick. God is Nuwa, represent the Kundalini energy, rising up out the world, up out the spine. Here she go right here. You see her? She's a serpent goddess. She represents your soul leaving the body as a serpent, the Kundalini. The serpent represents a sine wave. A sine wave, sound. The soul is an invisible signal of sound that isn't audible in our bandwidth of reality. But if you can hear it when it's released, it's the Big Bang. Boom, it's the biggest explosion. It's like, and I'm gonna go into that in a minute, but we gotta do a little syncretism. This goddess is called Nua, which became Noah. Noah became Nua. And the reason, and this is what happened, right? You had a patriarchal form of this goddess called Anu, but the matriarchal form predates Anu, right? And basically they took the goddess Nua, which is a female genie. All right, let me show y'all some, because you will not understand this if I don't give you the symbols. You won't understand it without the symbols. You got this genie leaving the lamp, but this is one of the oldest deities on the earth that represent your soul leaving the earth realm. And his name is Genie because he's a Nagini, which is what the Anunnaki is. And the Anunnaki represent every human with a soul. Now, I don't know about y'all. I got a soul. I'm a being of light. I got a soul in my body. When people go to talking about the Anunnaki, I'll be like, what's up? What you want? What you need to know about me, man? We are the Nagi, or the Naga, the Nagini. And the Nagini is the genie. The word Naga or Naga is the root word of Nag Hammadi, which is the book that talk about ascension, leaving the earth. So check this out. The word Anu is a patriarchal plagiarization of the female goddess Nuwa. They just took the word, they took N-U-A and they rearranged it to A-N-U, and that became the root word of annually, anal, right? And I don't want to be vulgar, but we are dealing with men, because when it was dealing with the sacred feminine, it was talking about a cosmic womb, but I don't want to be too vulgar with the linguistic syncretism. You can go on with being born through a man. It ain't nowhere you can come out of. I'm just saying now, this is what we got to realize about a lot of this set stuff. Shout out to the brother Awakening Minds for this etymology. Spine is penis when you rearrange the words. Just see, there's a lot of etymology in words that we ain't been taught. If you rearrange the word spine, you get penis. But why? Why, Sanchez? Well, hear me out, right? They was teaching about the obelisk being the spinal cord, but to hide the truth, they later came around and turned the spine into the penis, and they told you resurrection was just about the pharaoh busting a nut in a physical plane, because they wanted to come with the sex magic and mysticism to hide the truth about the Kundalini rising is deeper than the sperm coming up the male phallus shaft. They sexualized it to a very shallow level. But it was about the Kundalini energy, which is a serpent. It looked like a sperm. It looked like a sperm. It's a serpent. I mean, just take a look at Nuwa right here. She looked like a sperm cell. And it was taught that this energy that looks like a sperm cell will come up this shaft and burst out. Sounds sexual, don't it? I know. And the reason it's related to sex magic is because the same knowledge of how the soul gonna resurrect is the same knowledge of your mama and daddy getting together in the bed. They created a wormhole. When the phallus meets with the uterus, you have two capital T's coming together, making that capital I that I just told you. And that is a wormhole. Go look up a wormhole. That's what connected you to heaven and hell, mama and father, instinct and intuition. So we're torn in between the two, but it's a beautiful thing, because once you come out of this thing, you will know who you are, the knowledge of self. It won't be no guessing. You can't really live out your fate until you know who you are. And we ain't even start living yet. We're dead right now. We're asleep in a dream world. Our life haven't even begun yet. That's like Neo in the Matrix. His life didn't begin till he woke up. And this awakening, it became today's resurrection story. And this is what Gnosticism was all about. Giving you back the knowledge, you the power, not giving it outside of you with mysticism. So this goddess, her name was Nua, which is Nua, and they told a story about her. Basically, you know, she's representing ascension and you leaving the earth realm. She's a genie, a female genie, and she's leaving the earth realm, right? And the concept of this goddess leaving the earth realm, Nua, they plagiarized this story of this goddess leaving the earth realm. They changed her name from Nua, right? From Nua to Anu. So they just rearranged a couple of letters from Nua to Anu. And when it became Una, it was, Anu, it's the same story of a person leaving the earth or a genie leaving the lamp. So you can see here, Anu is just another genie or a Nagini leaving the earth realm. Now the word Nagini is the word Naga. It is the Naki at the end of Naka, Anunnaki. They want everyone to believe in these folkloric Anunnaki New Age creatures because they want to hide the fact that, guess what? All of us fallen angels are the Anunnaki. That's right. We forgot who we are. Why you think they want to get rid of the N-word? Because the N-word is the Nag. The N-word is the Nag Hammadi. You are a Naga, a Naga. Everyone saw us as the Nakis, the Nakas, the Anunnaka. And we stopped calling ourselves that. Don't you know that the word Naka, Naka, Naki, it became the word Nike, you know, the shoe company? And the swoosh represent a siphon, because this god is being siphoned or summoned up the spinal cord through a siphoning process. This is how the Kundalini energy is rising, because it's being summoned up by the higher self. So this god was also known to carry a siphon, which became a hook or a candy cane. But this is the North Pole god, dealing with the siphoning process of inhaling the soul, which became Papa Lekba later, a god with a big pipe blowing and smoking on it, representing this siphoning process of the soul. But the siphon is the number 7. What is a siphon? A siphon looks like this. That's Santa Claus candy cane. Santa is center, the god of the North Pole. His name is Anu, Noah, Nu'a, the ark god. So why does Noah release a bird out of the ark? Well, the concept of a bird being released from the ark comes from the first story was right here. Anu. Anu is the patriarchal form of Nu'a, and that is when they gave the serpent wings, and later it just became a winged serpent. And this winged serpent was also depicted in Egypt as a scorpion goddess. She completely changed forms into this scorpion goddess called Serket. Serket. See if I can find her for you. Here she go. This your Nike symbol. This how you get your Nike symbol. The Greek goddess of victory was originally a Kemetic scorpion goddess. She was a Naka, a Naki. It became Nike, Nike, Nike. But this is the Santa Claus candy cane representing the North Pole knowledge. So the word nag is so deep, it represents Naka, Nike, Naka, Anunnaki, that word Nike, dealing with victory. Why? Because victory is resurrection or liberation up out the simulation right here. So the number that was associated with this deity was a number 7, which means completion. And what is a number 7, y'all? A check mark. Remember that the check mark is the number 7, and the check mark means completion, you know. A check in a box is a check in a box. Did I just mess you up? Think about what I just said. I'm giving you some linguistic syncretism. When you do your grocery list, when you complete something, you put a check in the box, but the check in the box is a jack in the box. CHECK became JACEK. So check in the box became jack in the box. And it all symbolizes completion. When you're done, you see how one part of the check is hanging out of the box, just like one part of the genie is hanging out of the lamp, just like one part of jack is hanging out of the box. The jack in the box is the check in the box. And it symbolizes completion. It's 7 boxes. Once jack crosses out all 7 boxes, he leaves the simulation. He completed his checklist. And the checklist is the chakra list. The word check is the root word of chakra in chakra. Chakra. Jack in the box is the energy, the consciousness of God that got split into 7 avatars. And now we about to talk about those. Completion is liberation, is what the Gnostics taught. And that's why all of this represent the Statue of Liberty. And this is why they build the Statue of Liberty on water, because the soul is literally busting up out of these ethereal waters like a baptism, and it's a new version of itself. Here it is right here. This is the original Statue of Liberty. You see the spiky hair, the spikes on the head, and it's busting up out of the waters below. This was talking about the ascension of the soul. The flood is inside of the Pokemon ball. Once our light got trapped inside of this ball, the 2 halves became the left and right brain. And once the light illuminated the inside of the ball, but it couldn't shine no further, the light ricocheted back inward toward the source and blinded itself with its own light. And the blinding of God with its own light creates the simulation, the dream world. It's no different than this image right here. Think of it like an underwater splash. That's what the Big Bang is. First of all, the Big Bang is when your soul entered the simulation. It created a mushroom cloud of energy because there is something called cause and effect. When the sperm entered the egg, that was your energy entering the simulation, but it played out in the simulation as a sperm entering an egg, but it was really a sine wave entering a vacuum tube. That's sonoluminescence. I'm gonna get into that in a minute. The sperm going into the egg is a sound going into a vacuum tube to create light, which the doctor calls conception. But when the sound enters the jar, it's an explosion. Boom, the impact, and it creates the body, which shaped like a mushroom cloud. And what happens when the sperm enters the egg, it's the sound wave. See, the sperm is just a sound wave. When the sound wave enters the egg, go research sonoluminescence. Let me show you what sonoluminescence is. Let's read it. Sonoluminescence is a phenomenon where light is emitted from small gas bubbles when they are rapidly collapsed by sound waves within a liquid. Let me show you what we mean here. I got an image up for you guys. Bear with me. Pull this up for you. Oh, okay, I didn't open it. Here we go. Let me pull it. Here it is right here. Oh wow, I didn't open that up, did I? Let me do something real quick, people. My bad. I thought I had my sonoluminescence joint up. I'll just pull it up again. So sonoluminescence is light made from sound. In water, sound with the right frequency can produce a super hot bubble that creates a flash of light when it collapses. So basically the sperm cell goes into the egg, which is full of the water that we just read. Let me pull this up for y'all. And the doctors say she have conceived. This is the Star of Bethlehem. This is the Gnostic teaching of Christ. Christ is an archetype that represent our soul's journey in the flesh. This became the Star of Bethlehem that was seen by the wise men. Who were the wise men? They were the doctors at that time who were giving birth. They had technology just like we have today that they can see the light of conception back in ancient Egypt. So all of us are represented by a light in the sky. Why? The sky above was also a gateway to see what's up there, was to look in between a woman's legs. They knew that on the earth until we lost that knowledge, that souls from heaven come through the woman on earth, as above, so below. A soul enters the sky vault, and that is the sperm entering the woman's egg. What's playing out in macro is playing out in micro. But when the sperm enters the egg, then a light is formed. The doctors call that the light of conception. But see, the sperm is nothing but a sound wave. It's gone into this compressed, watery jar, and sonoluminescence take place, and your avatar is formed from all that transformation of energy. It's cymatics, y'all. Cymatics. 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 So the moment the sound waves enter this jar, you're gonna get this sonoluminescence. The doctor gonna say, okay, she's conceived. That means we see a flash of light in her fetal bag. There's a little light shining in her belly. We don't even see a body yet, but we see this light. Something's there. And it's invisible with our physical eyes, quote unquote. So they need technology that would allow them to see that a woman has conceived, because there is no body during conception. Ain't no physical flesh. What they're detecting is invisible energy. A soul just landed. And the soul show up before the body is formed around it. Once the body forms around this light will seat itself at the brain of that body, and it will start to control that body as the mind or the guide or the God. Okay? This is God right here. This is your mind. This is the consciousness that landed in your mama from the day you entered the earth. It's what's seated now in your brain. It needs a watery world. All right, this light need to be surrounded by water so that it can maintain sonoluminescence. So when your light first fell into the physical plane, remember, it needs to live in these watery realms for sonoluminescence to take place. So your light borrowed your mother's fetal bag as its first incubator for it to sonoluminesce, if that's a word. It used your mama first. And once it was able to transform, because this is like an incubation process, the sperm becomes a human. Now it's able to house house itself in its own avatar, and it seats itself as at its own brain, but the transformation process haven't stopped yet. It's gonna now outgrow the brain just like it outgrew the mama's feeder bag. And the only thing that's gonna be left for it to break through nets is the firmament dome. So there's layers of awakening. Your first house was inside of your mama. Your next house is inside of yourself. And your third house after this is gonna be inside, basically inside of your macro body, your God body, you will be exposed to, which is what this God is doing. He's busting up out of his own skull. It's like waking up from a dream. Consciousness is leaving the head that was walking around the dream world. So that the person that's walking around the dream world, that brain got to lay down in order for the soul to go to another head. Why? Let me show you real quick. It's very simple. Your brain is the doorway into the earth realm, into duality. Look at your brain like a Pokemon ball, like a genie lamp, like two doors to a gate. And once the soul go inside this thing, the door shut. And the only way the soul can open this thing back up is for the light inside of the bubble to get so expanded that it just blow this damn ball open. Because that's what happened with Sono Luminet. Here go the story of that happening, by the way. In the bottom left corner, you have Freemasonic cosmology, which is plagiarized from Gnosticism. They hold the knowledge, they give you the beliefs. By the way, people, I'm working on a very dope documentary for you guys. Have you been enjoying my edited documentaries? Come on now, I've been working hard with quality content because I rocks with y'all my peoples. So share it, like it, comment, help me out. Let's spread this Gnosticism so that we can have knowers instead of believers. Watch this, right? Along with all of the deep stuff that I'm making, I have this very dope documentary called Believing versus Knowing, where I'm remaking my original video. You can share that with your loved ones. It's like a gateway into Gnosticism, but it's gonna go into belief versus gnosis on a psychological level, how the mind functions when it's a believer versus a seeker of knowledge. It's very, I got real life statistics. It's a very deep, informative, knowledgeable documentary about believers versus knowers. It's very deep. I'm working on it. It'll be uploaded soon. But let's get back to the teachings. What we're looking at now is a collage full of different deities around the world that represents busting up out the simulation. So what I'm gonna do at this time, I'm gonna keep teaching y'all, but I'm gonna take a real quick break at my hour mark. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna get my Bob Marley on, right? I'm about to roll me up something, and it only take me about 3 minutes. In that time, I'm gonna play a song for y'all. Enjoy the music. We're gonna come back and break down this symbolism and go even deeper.
Support the content you love. Your contribution matters. It helps us continue our groundbreaking research, allowing us to create the unique content that you expect from our brand.
Sánchez cocinando.
Hey, yeah. This is not a spoof, I got proof. When you the truth, all of these haters be hella mad at you. I be in the booth full of goose. Avoiding chickens doing what the fuck I'm supposed to do. You trying to stop my plan, know that you's a fan. Throwing rocks and hiding your hands. All you got is fam. Heard that from my grams when she was watching Silence of the Lambs. Swear I tell you no lies. As days go by, I be wiping more tears from my eyes. Had to swallow my pride to brighten my skies. I'm seeing all these wolves in disguise. They be hating on me every day. Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Cause they know that I'm the truth and I let this bitch loose, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. And I be twisting up that backwoods, rolling through them backwoods, yeah. Every day. My haters can't move forward cause they got this shit backwards, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Life is one big road with lots of signs. When you ride through the ruts, don't complicate your mind. Flee from hate, mischief, and jealousy. Don't bury your thoughts, put your vision to reality. Now if you not a fluke and you the truth, put your hands in the air like you raising the roof. Ever since a youth, I've been hater proof. All my dogs woof, it's cloudy in the booth. You don't stand a chance, you know that you's a stand. Wanna see me stuck inside a can. All you got is fam. Heard that from my grams when she was cooking cornbread and yams. Swear I tell you no lies. As days go by, I be wiping more tears from my eyes. Had to swallow my pride to brighten my skies. I'm seeing all these wolves in disguise. They be hating on me every day. Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Cause they know that I'm the truth and I let this bitch loose, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. And I be twisting up that backwoods, rolling through them backwoods, yeah. Every day. My haters can't move forward cause they got this shit backwards, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Sánchez cocinando.
At Cox, we're always a step ahead. There you go. I'll show you. Like, before your basement became Movie Central, we made sure you'd have strong Wi-Fi, even down here. And you can rest easy knowing the price of your plan won't go up for 3 years. Guaranteed. See? He's looking out for you. And so are we, with advanced security that blocks threats on your network. Good boy. Whatever the future brings, Cox will keep you a step ahead. Oh.
Over a dark cloud, shining on you with its warm rays of beneficence.
Yo, once again from the soul. This is my notebook. Let me rip you a page that'll make you sit back and witness the plague. Got kids pitching grenades, missing the days. Guess you can't be a star sitting in the shade, and at times life will make you sicker than AIDS. Remember that the word siphon, because before I take this off the board, let's do some more etymology. See, because the word siphon on some bullshit. World on some bullshit. On some bullshit. World on some bullshit. We back. I told y'all it was just a little break. Yeah, I'm ready to talk about this collage right here. Because Jack in the Box, again, it represents completion. When you put a check mark inside of a box, right? So you gotta look at your like you know how. Let me show y'all how deep this is. Remember that the word siphon, because before I take this off the board, let's do some more etymology. See, because the word siphon this is a siphon. This is what a siphon look like. This is the word siphon. I'm gonna show you what linguistic syncretism is. Siphon, if you do the etymology, it becomes these words. Which later becomes this word. The word siphon becomes Saban, which is seven, which becomes seven. What is another word for seven? Septos, scepter. What is a scepter? A scepter is a siphon. A scepter is the top part of the magician's wand that bend over. It's called a scepter. It bends over, and the scepter is the septos, the part that makes the seven. But the siphon is the seven, the siphon, siphon, seven, seven. Over time, the words, think of like time, create the ages is like a wall. Like I'm telling you my name's Sanchez right now. Now what about right now? My name's Sanchez. Now what if I put another one? My name's Sanchez. Every age buries another layer on top of the truth. And then the truth gets distorted. So the word seven, for example, if you trace it all the way back, you will see that it was never seven, it was siphon. But if I tell y'all a story right now and pass it through 100 people, it ain't gonna be the same when it get to the last person. So as these stories and words are being spoken throughout the ages, every age it transforms to something else. And it's my job as a syncretist to show you the transformations and how they relate. And I love my job, man. And I'm gonna read all of the cash apps, the donations, and the super chats. Let's move to the next part. I wanna keep my flow because I've been and forgot, right? Because I'm already forgetting where I was about to go. So we went over, oh yeah. So check this out, right? Here's what's deep about the wordplay. Hey, drop a one if y'all hear my, if I'm good. Because my dog's barking. If y'all can hear me over the dogs, drop a one. Drop a one, y'all can hear me over the dogs. And if drop a one real quick. Yes. All right, thank you. I'll continue. I want to do something with this collage because I really want to show y'all a lot of plagiarization now that I've given you the deep Gnosticism and you see about the Kundalini and all that. We can skip back to the deep stuff, but the simple, important stuff, we gotta point it out, the plagiarism. We got to show the plagiarization because if y'all don't learn that, then it's like a smack in your ancestors' face, man. So it's a lot of work I gotta do. I got to give you the deep knowledge that the Gnostics was teaching, but I also got to expose these thieves and show you what they did and how they plagiarized it, like I just showed you with Nuwa and Anu. It's more. These folks are thieves, and I'm gonna show you some more thievery. So as well as exposing the truth, I gotta expose the thievery and the lie. And I love it because check it out, man. That's when the ancestors get to shine because check it out, right? There's a Greek goddess, we're going to call her Alma. Her name is Alma Matur, talking about the maturing of the soul, but let's say Alma. And I'm going to show you what Alma looked like. She's a female form of Jack in the Box. She's up there in the top right corner next to Anu right here. And that's the Greek goddess Alma. But there is a Dogon goddess that predate this Greek goddess Alma, and she's down here in the bottom left corner. She's a female form of Jack in the Box. and her name is Alma. You see what these doggone plagiarists? Let me show you. See, I can't just teach you the truth. I want to show you what the liars did. Look at what they done. See, they turned Alma into Alma. They turned Alma into Alma. And when they turned Alma to Alma, and again, Alma is this black goddess in the bottom left. Alma is this white goddess up here. But Sanchez, why does it matter if everybody got the truth? Everybody ain't got no truth. When they turned this goddess into Alma, she only represent part of their educational system. So again, if a person go to college, right, let me show you what I mean. It stopped being spiritual education and it went to Greek earthly consumerism education that ain't getting you to be a god. It's getting you to be a consumer and a person in a rat race. Let me show you what the Greek version represents. If you go to college, right, alma mater refers to the school, college, or university that someone has attended, especially one they graduated. So the concept of coming up out of school was called the alma mater, but that was the original concept of resurrection, because earth is a school, and when your spirit come up out of this earth realm, you just graduated from school. The word diploma comes from the word deployment. They literally playing on words, which is why I like linguistic syncretism. Watch this. Watch this. You know what? Let me take my sleeve off. I'm tripping. We need all of the board to show. Let me come down. Let me put my desk down a little. It'll show you the rest of y'all. There we go. Get all of that on there. Now look, watch this. The mature form of alma represent the body ascending to a god. You become mature, like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. The word mater is them hiding the word mature. They don't want us gods to become mature gods and rise up to our godhood. In other words, they don't want the caterpillar to become a butterfly and graduate out of school. Before this turned into the alma mater, it was talking about the maturing of alma, which is the soul. But also the diploma represented your deployment. And the diploma is rolled up like an obelisk, like a scroll. And the reason that the diploma sounds like deployment is because if you look at what the diploma is, it's a little bitty scroll. And that little bitty scroll is Jack holding the beanstalk. That's Jacob holding the ladder. Deployment. Diploma is deployment. They changed all of this stuff, y'all. Before they created any schools on earth, they was teaching you that earth was a school. You know why they think ancient people was dumb as hell? Because the ancient people didn't have no schools. You look around the ancient world, you don't see schools. So the thing about it is because they taught that the earth was a school. The Mayan was telling you that you are a soul and the earth around you is a school. It is a classroom. So they didn't put you in another school. They let you learn the world around you. But what the Greeks do, they put you in another classroom and they build a whole nother fake world around you made out of lies, theories, belief systems. And that's called the matrix. And Jacob never makes a ladder, he just sleeps in the matrix like Neo before he woke up. Jacob's ladder is your spinal cord. It's the obelisk that represent resurrection, but the obelisk is the diploma that they give you. What do they do with the diploma? They wrap it up in a ribbon because they really showing you the Nehushtan or the Moses staff, right? That diploma is the barber pole, and they wrapping a ribbon around it is the swirls around the barber pole. The red and blue swirl wrapping around your barber pole. See, Moses had a stick with a snake wrapped around it. Today they give you a roll of paper with the ribbon wrapped around it. But remember, Moses' stick represent what? That he is a wise man. Now, what do your diploma represent? That you smart, you made it out of school. They've been flipping the symbolism, y'all. It's deeper than what we think. But the dude that think he went to college think he's smart when he just really got dumbed down into the mystery system to where everything now a mystery to him. He's not a Gnostic. He know theories and myths and got a belief system. So look at the Moses staff. They call it the Nehushtan. And what is the Nehushtan? The devil. I told you they demonized this knowledge. This is a form of Nuwa, the serpent. This is the Kundalini energy that they turned into Satan. If you look at the word Nehushtan, you can see the name Satan. The Shaitan is Satan. Nahush, Satan. Diploma, deployment. See, the serpent represent wisdom. That's how you get your diploma, and you can deploy up out of this bitch. They don't want you to know this so you can leave, right? Look at here. The staff that Moses carry is broke down into two words. It's called a Nehushtan. But the Nehu is one word. And Shatan is another one. And it translates to the staff of Satan, or the Neo. It's like two words, right? Neo is the word of Noah, like in the Matrix. Neo in the Matrix is Noah in the ark. Same story about the simulation. Neo is Noah. Noah. And this is in the neocortex. A lot of but think about this, right? Neo is Noah. The last part is Satan. Neo Satan. Nehushtan. See what I'm saying? And it's just talking about this same concept, the Kundalini, the serpent energy. The one, Neo. Shaitan, Satan, the serpent. That's the symbol that Moses got. That is the diploma. Moses was a wise man when he lifted that up. And guess what? When you lift this up, people say, look at you not going on. You smart now. You know something, huh? So what do? They put the box on your head. This is the jack in the box. The tassel is turning. All of this is dealing with cosmic knowledge, bro. Gnosticism, which is knowledge, gnosis. When you go to school and get your diploma, they're plagiarizing the fact that Earth is a school, and you can't get your diploma until you get out of their school and realize they lied. You holding that diploma in your hand is like Jack holding on to this beanstalk right here. Here it is. Because this is how you're going to elevate yourself to heaven on the elevator. You're going to hold on to this North Pole, and you're going to catch a ride up to the sky like Jack did with his beanstalk. This is the original obelisk. And the God that symbolizes this North Pole ascension is right here. He's called a demiurge. You see him in between the sun and the moon because the North Pole is in between the sun and the moon. What does the demiurge have on his head? A crown of thorns. And you telling me that ain't Jesus Christ? Huh? See, before Christ, people talked about resurrection differently. This little snake in between the sun and moon, it represents the split in between your left and right brain. It represents the serpent that I just showed you on my thumbnail that's in between everything in your body right here. Look, this serpent in between your left and right brain, they called it the demiurge. But let me give you some more words to break down with the etymology. Don't let them lie to you. This God ain't come to divide and conquer you. He came to divide and complete you. Because as a baby God, and within all baby gods, right, it's the potential for good and bad. So what the demiurge does, right, the demiurge takes this baby God and it splits the baby God into two pieces. An evil God and a good God, and it let both of them gods live inside your one body in the earth realm. So one half of God is on this side of the spine, and the other half on that side of the spine. And this the devil, this the angel on each shoulder. You two gods in one, split at the spine. And the right side represent when you want to do good, that's coming from over here. Whenever you making a bad decision, that's coming from over here. So good and bad exist in us simply because we got left and right brain. Good and bad is a program that the demiurge is running, and we call it the do-out, or the simulation. But the reason the demiurge split you into two is because you got to decide which version of the self you want to be. This God ain't dividing you up to conquer you. He's dividing you up to give you a choice of who you want to be. Your good version or bad version, or somewhere in between the two. He's allowing you to develop your character, to carve out who you want to be. So this is like an incubation process of furnace where you get to mold out who you want to be. And if you come out of the furnace and you don't like what you are, you go back in and you go, it's like a molded process until you come out perfect. But this represents the split in the brain that creates duality. We all signed up for this. And here it is in another way right here with, let me go back to my notes first of all, right? Because when the Gnostics got demonized, the serpent became associated with Satan. Meditation and breath work became Eastern or pagan or Hindu type stuff. But there was always a connection between the East and West world. They don't show you. Jesus' disciples are his avatars. Now, let me go back and show you. We finna go deep with this thing now. Remember what I was telling y'all, that you exist as more than one version of yourself, and you got to explore all of your versions, which is 7, before you can make it out. And so here is an image of Jacob reaching the 7th heaven, all of his avatars making it up about the matrix and reuniting heaven. The concept of your one becoming many represents the fall of man. We was one singular consciousness. We split into many versions, and these many versions will have communion with each other in the duat, in the dual realm, where we exist as many different versions of ourselves. That means in the underworld, you exist in a multiverse full of parallel realities, and you got to voyage through the multiverse, exploring the many versions of yourself, and the end goal is awakening, knowledge, self-mastery. This image of Vishnu with his avatars is showing you how the one becomes many, right? To the left of Vishnu is all of his worst versions. To the right of him is all of his good versions. In the middle of him is neuter, netter, neutral, Santa, center. And what kind of hat is Santa wearing? You see Vishnu with the Santa hat on? It's a triangle with the little circle on top. That's the real story of Santa. Santa is Satan. This became satanic when the church cursed it. So the knowledge of the center of the earth, center, became sinner. You're a sinner now. And it became people hating themselves and worshiping God because they think they filthy and dirty. But before it was the word sinner, it was the word center, which is Santa. And we was teaching about how great we were, not how wicked and dirty we were in the eyes of some bougie ass Roman god. That's when they hid the knowledge. Okay, so the center one is the true self. It's a culmination of what you see on the left and the right coming to a central point to make your greatest version out of all the good and the bad that you went through. So you can look at the faces on the left. Is Vishnu learning by bumping his head and making mistakes? And you can look at the faces on the right as Vishnu learning simply by just doing the right thing. Because if I'm in the classroom, I don't get all of the questions wrong. I get some right. And then when I get them right, what I learn is that, hey, I didn't have to learn. I learned that. The ones I marked wrong, I got to get corrected. Those represent a do-over, which is a devil or a demon, which is what they call a god of repetition, a version of you that failed and had to do it over. And it learned in a do-over. And the versions of him on the right are the ones that just got it right on the first time. And the ones on the left, them are the ones that got left behind. They had to do it over. Like a child that took a test and it didn't pass, it got left. Everyone else went on to the next test, but it got to do that one over till it passed it got left. So left is left. It's ignorance. It's you being separated from knowledge of God, which is righteousness. Right? So why is these directions associated with ignorance, knowledge, morality, and all that? It's simply because the right brain is for intuition and the left brain is for instinct. When you gotta learn by exploring your instinctive nature, it is like learning by getting your ass whipped. And when you learn by exploring your intuitive nature, it's like getting rewarded because you did right. So it's two ways you can teach a child. You can punish them for doing wrong, or you can simply reward them for doing right. You can say, look, if your room is dirty, I'm gonna whoop your butt. Or if your room is clean, I'm gonna take you out to Chuck E. Cheese. But so the soul come to learn both ways, right? Both ways. So there are some things that the soul got to learn through punishment, and some things it's gonna learn through reward. And that's what both of these different faces are represented. Why different avatars of Vishnu, and what is separated by his avatars that were instinctive versions versus on the right, his avatars that was intuitive. And this is the angel on one shoulder, the devil on the next. But this is way more complicated than just one angel on one shoulder and one devil on the other one. You had a couple of angels on one shoulder and a couple of devils on the other one. And the severity of their influence increased the further or closer they got from the center. So for example, the devil that's all the way back here, his influence ain't that high because he can't be heard by the true self in the center like this devil that's right there on the side of you, right? So all of these devils on the left are saying the same thing, but it gets distorted the further away you go. But this was the Hindu trying to teach the intricacies of neural activity and how we act on thought. So there's levels to evil, there's levels to good. If I say, look, I'm about to fuck dude up. If I listen to this devil wail over here, I might torture the man and go overboard. But if I listen to this devil that's closer to Vishnu, I might just slap him. Whereas same thing on the right side is levels to good. I say, look, this homeless man asking for money. Well, the angel way out here is saying, give his ass them little $5 you got, man. That's all he need. He just gonna get something to drink anyway. You did good, but it wasn't that good. If you listen to this face right here that's closer to Vishnu, it might tell you, hey, give that homeless man $100. You know you balling anyway. You got 50,000 in your bank account. Give the man 50 bucks at least instead of 5. So it's instead of having one angel on the shoulder and one devil, the Hindu took it to another level. They had several angels and several demons that represent degrees of good and bad. Because there are severities of how good you can do and how bad you can do. It ain't that you did good, you did bad. You can do good, better, worse. Those are severities involved in the level of morality. So that was more like a measuring stick. How good did you do? How bad did you do? And today this would be like the hierarchy that we see in theology among demons and angels. That comes from Hinduism. When we say some angels are better than other ones and some demons are more evil than other demons, there's levels to it. Certain angels are more good than other angels, right? And they get that from this. But Krishna's avatars became Jesus's disciples. Okay? We need to know that Jesus's disciples are not different dudes following him around. It's different layers of Christ himself following him around, just like with Krishna here. So the serpent eventually became associated with Satan when the church crusaded. All of the stuff that I'm teaching you, like the concept of inner divinity, was replaced with guilt, sin, and it required us to now be dependent on priests and churches to remove said sin. Whereas at first, it was taught that all of your good and bad deeds were already written out and you just came here to fulfill them. And that at the end, it will be a divine lesson that will get you to another version of yourself. Like I told you earlier, if you look in the mirror right now and you happy with where you are right now when you compare where you used to be, then you doing good. But you owe where you at right now to the good and bad that you did. If I take away all the mistakes that you made in your life, you wouldn't be where you at right now. You owe where you at right now to the good and bad. So there was no concept of you being a sinner. You was a soul that came here to learn from both pillars, good and evil. Like I said, you came to learn who you are from doing bad and making mistakes. You came to learn who you are from being rewarded, doing good. All of that is going to culminate to Vishnu in the middle. It was never about you born a sinner. You are born a center or a Santa, which is a center of free energy. You're your own universe, and every beacon of light becomes its own North Pole within the darkness. That's what each star is. So what they teaching us in the space program is kind of true. It's that there is no direction once you get outside of the firmament dome. You're in the multiverse. And basically, whatever star you go toward, once you enter that star, then you get direction. The center of that star becomes your North Pole, and the cardinal directions are referenced around it. But once you leave that bubble, that reality, you in the multiverse, ain't no direction per se. The only reference points are lights all around you in the darkness. Once you pick one, then direction is born, because remember, directions are born within duality. So when you're traveling the multiverse, you can't say, well, I'm going north, east, west. You're just traveling the multiverse, and you going toward whatever star or whatever Stargate parallel reality you're entering for your next classroom. Once you get in there, then duality is created from the point of impact based upon your entry point. Now, what do you mean with the entry point, Sanchez? All of the heads that you see around Vishnu are like cardinal directions around the North Pole, just like we see the light rays around the polar star here, and this represents your pineal gland, which is Polaris. Pineal is related to the word pinnacle. The highest self is in the middle of the universe, and it's standing up just like Jet Li. But this image of Jet Li seated at the top of this step pyramid represent the pineal gland seated at the top of the brain stalk. Because if you pull up the brain stalk, it is a step pyramid. It is a rigid looking stairway looking thing. I'll pull it up for you. Here it is right here. It's called the pons, the P-O-N-S, the pons. Let's pull it up. You see it? It looked like a step pyramid. It's called the pons, and it's a pyramid shaped with steps on it. But once the consciousness climbs through the pons, it's now seated up in its new body. So when you give up the ghost, which is this light that's at the base of your brain, this light is gonna ascend up to the higher plane, and it's gonna resurrect through another you and seat itself in that brain. So when this ball of lights gets seated on top of the pons, they give you this symbol of an all-seeing eye on top of a step pyramid, which represents liberation. The landing, the bird has, when Noah released that bird and it shows land, it represents the prodigal son returning home. Because every plane we ascend to, we getting closer to the base reality and closer to the true self returning home. And this symbol represents when we make it to the highest heaven and the eye of God becomes open. Now they say that Jesus wear a crown of thorns, but I bet you didn't know that Jesus was also the all-seeing eye. Why you think this all-seeing eye got a crown of thorns on? Let me show y'all something real quick, man. Show you something real quick. Because if you think I'm going deep now, just wait. Here is the all-seeing eye. It said Jesus was pierced all over in his sides. That's because the symbol of Christ before Christ was an eye symbol. But this eye symbol is what they calling the Jesus fish. Now check this out. This symbol in Egypt, it ain't a fish, it is an eye. I'm gonna say that again. This same symbol that y'all calling a Jesus fish, when you get to Kemet, it ain't a fish, it's an eye now. This fish represents the center of the soul, which sees all, the all-seeing eye. Look at Jet Li. Jet Li is at the top of the holy mountain like the all-seeing eye, right? Is at the all-seeing eye is at the top of the mountain, and all of the rays are leading back to the source of light. All of these men that you see trying to get to Jet Li are his avatars uniting with him in a cosmic battle where he's wrestling with each version of himself, but the war don't end in him eliminating the version, it ends in him merging with one. All of God's avatars will return home to this one spot, and they will culminate to form this God version of yourself. Because what each of these avatars is a version of you that learned its own lesson in its own parallel reality. And once all of your avatars make it back to one spot, you're going to have so much knowledge. Imagine if you can access all of your avatars, every version of yourself that exists throughout the multiverse. That's what Vishnu represents, the all-knowing. And that leads back to the word gnosis. The all-knowing God is what manifests within every human when you complete this school. You become the all-knowing, which is the all-gnosis. You become a Gnostic. We started as Gnostics, and we gonna end as Gnostics. Gnosticism ain't a religion. It is an initiation that we entered the moment we was born. In other words, the moment us baby God said we wanted knowledge, we became Gnostics, baby Gnostics. And this whole reincarnation matrix is your entry, your initiation into Gnosticism. So once you make it up out of here, you will be a God, a knower, a full Gnostic. But the G for Gnostic is the same G for God. I mean, the word Gnostic is synonymous with God because the Gnostic is the one that knows the secrets of creation, reality. That is God. It knows the mysteries of man and the universe. All of those were never mysteries. They was knowledge that the universe wanted every man to know. That's why the Bible said, prove all things. The Bible wouldn't tell you to prove all things, then keep you in mystery and belief. Come on now, silly. If the Bible is a book of truth, it's meant for you to, the truth is meant to be proven, not believed. Once you prove the truth, you know it, and you've been initiated into the truth by you saying, I know it. You saying, I'm a Gnostic. Know is gnosis. The people that saying, I know what I'm talking about, not I believe what I'm saying and what the Bible said, that separate the Gnostics from the believers, and the Gnostics are the ones that will inherit the kingdom. This universe is very relentless when it comes to knowledge. It don't care how sweet and kind you is. If you dumb, you ain't going to the next heaven. I'm going to say that again. Why did the ancestors, why were they so obsessed with knowledge to the point where even the word Gnostic is the word knowledge? They was naming themselves off the word knowledge because they knew knowledge was power. God is power, right? And if you ain't God, you the devil, which is an ignorant motherfucker keeping humanity back. Not thinking outside the box, maintaining the status quo, repeating what the church programmed in you. You can only be God or a devil in this dual realm. The people that know, they the gods. The people that believe, they the devils. That's why the root word of believe is lie. And the devil is a deceiver. He perpetuates the lie through belief systems. The universe don't care if you a sweet liar. The universe don't care if you fed the homeless, but you told people that they want God to believe in a sky daddy. You committed the ultimate sin, which is keeping a soul in darkness, man. I don't care how many kids you saved. The highest form of good that you can do in the universe, according to Plato, according to the Magi, according to the Gnostics, the highest form of good you can do in the universe is to enlighten. Facts. Bro, you can go feed 3 homeless nations and you didn't do as good as a person that woke up 3 people's minds. It's way more harder to wake one person up than it is to feed 100 hungry people. Because it's way more hard to feed the mind than to feed the body. People ain't giving enough credit to the people with the truth. They giving more credit to the people out there doing secular activities under the guise of 5013Cs and outreach and community work when they're in bed with the state. Don't get me started, nigga.
Sánchez cocinando.
You gonna leave me alone. I swear y'all dudes ain't like me. You're not like me. But now let me keep moving with my knowledge here, man. Here is another image of Vishnu's avatars And you can see surrounding Vishnu are all of his avatars living out a different reality in parallel universes around him. Look at there. This is the story that they taught before the church hid it. Jesus' disciples were his disciplined bodies, meaning that they were his other versions of himself that needed to work on something about themselves. There's a version of you in the universe that's a liar. There's a version of you in the universe that's a sex whore. In each of these universes, Vishnu got to wake up and take control over that avatar and discipline it, because each of these versions of him are out of control with some deadly sin in one of these universes. One of them is a gluttony. He's eating it. So it's something in the simulation that's ruling over his energy, and he got to reclaim it by being born into these parallel realities and actually suffering like Christ did and overcoming the flesh and seeking nothing but knowledge. All of his avatars can't come home until he go into each of these parallel realities and live out that life and wake up in each avatar. So no matter what he doing in each of these worlds, when his consciousness lands in that world, it will realize I'm God sleeping versus I'm a foot masseuse, which is what he doing in this world. Or in this world, right? You know, he's fighting in this world, right? So let's say he's a fighter right here. When he's born into this universe, he's gonna realize, man, I'm not a fighter. I'm a god that fell asleep and forgot that I'm come from a higher realm, and I've been recycled in this world over and over, fighting. So throughout Vishnu's lifetime, in this parallel universe, he have deja vu about him beating this dude up, and that deja vu lets him know something is up, man, something going on. Why am I seeing this? Because in these parallel realities, it's basically like a movie starring him, where his character is gonna play out that script whether he's conscious of it or not. So he existed before his consciousness showed up, right? Because that character in the movie had the script and it was running out before he showed up. But when he show up, he experiences the script for the first time consciously. It's like a movie that's playing in my bedroom, but I'm not watching it. When I show up to watch the movie, that's when I start my life, but my life was gone before I showed up, if that make any sense. So these are books that were written out before Vishnu started reading them. And as he read each book, he get more knowledge. And we're reading the book of life now by living experience. So when they say it was written, that's why you have deja vu. Basically, what Vishnu is showing us right here is the Yggdrasil tree that I showed you earlier. But now remember, this tree is called Yggdrasil, YGG, but the Y is really the E in our language. So it's egg drizzle, egg drizzle. Now, what does that mean? Let's break that down. What does Yggdrasil mean? Well, the YGG is the word egg, and the drizzle is drizzle, like raining. It's drizzling on me. So what Yggdrasil mean is eggs that's falling. And the egg that fell was Humpty Dumpty. They told this story in the form of Humpty Dumpty, the fallen eggs. What's happening is this right here. These worlds that you see are called eggs. YGG, eggs. But this tree is like recycling them. It ain't just holding them still. It's like juggling them. It's like a juggler. So let me show you what I mean. These eggs are being recycled around the axis point. It's 7 of them. And they're the 7 chakras or checkpoints or parallel realities that your soul must go through before it can go back to Asgard up here. Okay? So this tree is like a Ferris wheel, so to speak, where the worlds ain't still. They're drizzling. Another word for falling is drizzling. So a person that's juggling a bunch of balls, these balls are constantly falling. These balls are in a constant state of falling, right? So, or drizzling. So Yggdrasil is dealing with what the tree is doing. It's drizzling these eggs, or it's juggling these eggs around a central point. But another way to look at this tree is right here. This is your God body. And surrounding your God body is the stars. So what is the God body? It's basically the central nervous system represented by Vishnu, or the tree trunk right here. It's the part of you that's invisible, what's projecting your avatar inside the simulation. The Egyptians called it the hidden one, pure invisible consciousness, and it will always be hidden because there is no layer of the self that can permeate into the innermost part. Like, this part of you is such at the core of the self that your journey inward, it's a pioneer. This part of you is like a boat, and your journey is like the wake of the boat. And the wake will always be behind the boat. The boat is like a pioneer that's paving the way. That's what Vishnu is for his avatars, like you see here. So look at this Vishnu in the middle like a boat, and look at his two sets of avatars on each side, like the two what do you call them? The two patterns that the boat wake make when the boat split the water. It make the two pillars, Joachim and Boaz. This is why Jesus is splitting the bread. Look at here. The boat is Krishna. That's the true self. But the fake self is the wake. That's your body. That's your body. The soul will never exist outside of a body. So when I say you having an out-of-body experience, it should really be called an out-of-this-body experience, because you will always end up in some lighter body as density. But the thing is, how light can you get? This thing go to infinity, so you will never reach the innermost part of this sonum bonum, but the journey will become heaven as we cross a certain threshold. You see what I'm saying? So Vishnu is the boat, but duality is created as the boat moves, as the sine wave moves through the primordial waters. That is the demiurge, the sperm and the egg splitting the egg, making the yin and the yang. The serpent in the middle of the yin and the yang, that serpent that's in the middle of the yin and the yang, it's the sperm that went in the egg to split it in the middle to make duality. But remember, the egg is full of water. So as the sperm journeys through the egg, it creates a wake. And that wake is what creates the duality. Because think about it, what happens when a person is in a process of waking up, that means they're not fully woke. So when they're in the process of waking up, they half sleepy, they half woke, because they're awakening. They're awakening, wake. They haven't awakened with an ED past tense. They are wakening. And that wakening is I'm half sleep, I'm half woke. That creates the left and right brain. Sleep and woke, instinct, intuition, devil, angel. But that sleep half and woke half is created by the boat, which is the energy. The soul is neutral, right? The soul ain't got a dog in the fight. That's the demiurge. It ain't negative or evil. It's creating duality as energy stay in motion. All right? So take the M off motion, what you get? Ocean. If you take the M off motion, you get ocean, because you can't have movement without a medium. and that medium is defined as an ocean. So this how we get the split in the universe, simply energy and motion. And these emotions turn into experiences that we call life that manifest from the higher realm, and they play out as parallel realities, as stories that the soul come to experience. And once it read the story, it gain gnosis. Knowledge is power. The more power it get, the more it can become Neo and transcend the matrix. Very simple. So right here is an example of what the God body looks like. It looks like this. I'm gonna show you another version of it. Here is the ancient Catholic version of it from the 1700s. They was teaching about vortex energy. And here is the modern version of it. What they called this was the man of sin, which is what Jesus is, the representation of sin. But before Jesus represented sin, the devil did, which is why they both is the serpent that's lifted up on the cross. Because this satanic knowledge was wisdom. It wasn't evil. It was wisdom. It was gnosis. It was Gnosticism. So the man of sin, even if you look at this collage, what did they say? They said Jesus wore a crown of thorns, right? Well, if you look at your God body right here, look at what's on the head, spikes. Jesus with the crown of thorns on represent Buddha, sleep in the tree. Let me show you what they got up at the Vatican. Romanized form of Buddha in the form of Christ. They got this serpent form of Jesus at the Vatican, and it is embedded within the tree. But this is Buddhism in the Western world that was hidden. At some point, everyone was telling the story of resurrection, and the oldest forms of this Romanized Jesus is there at the Vatican telling you the story right in your face. Remember the collage that I put up of the Pharaoh in the tree, Buddha in the tree? All right. This is resurrection. This image of Christ at the Vatican, it ain't nothing to be scared of, man. Here it is right here. Let me show you another version so you can quit tripping. Here it is right here. See, that tree represent Christ busting up out the waters below. Look at it like a water splash. Think of someone splashing out of water. Baptism, you being born again, resurrection, a new you. They got, so the sacred geometry is a tree. They got so many ways to show this, but I'm trying to open your third eye. This is what Jesus is doing on the tree. He's rising up out of the waters below. So I showed you guys this with Buddha, right? Let me pull that back up. Let's pull it back up. Here it is right here. People will look at this at the Vatican and they will go into Satanism and all kind of spookism. And that's what the Vatican wants you to do. That's what the papacy wants you to do, because that reinforces the belief system of the devil and monsters and the God. Ooh, the Pope is hiding Satanism. No, they're not. They're hiding the knowledge of self behind spookism and mysticism. Jesus busting up out that tree is like Buddha busting up out the tree. It's like the caterpillar busting up out the cocoon. It's like Jack climbing up the beanstalk. It's like that Nagini right there in the bottom right corner coming up out the water, making a ripple effect. Saturn has ripples around him because he's emerging from the water. He just completed his earthly life. And the sky is blue for a reason, y'all. You want to know why the sky blue? Because you are up under some water right now. And there's different density layers to water that they not telling you about. Water comes in so many different density layers. They only got you thinking about the wet one at the ocean. But let me show you what the ancestors said, that the sky was an ocean. and that it's a less dense ocean. And that when your soul rise up past the blue sky, it's gonna bust up to a whole nother earth above here, like this, till it get all the way up to the top of the mountain where heaven is. So the knowledge of our soul ascending past this ethereal layer was told as Jesus Christ today, but the knowledge is hidden behind us taking these stories literally and not deciphering and decoding like I'm doing. When the Bible say prove all things, it's telling you, listen, I'm a book of truth, but I've been tampered with, so you need to decode me. All right? That's right. If the Bible had the truth in it directly, hook, line, and sinker, it wouldn't have told you to prove nothing. It would have told you to just read me and you good. But the Bible is giving you a disclaimer. It's saying prove all things. All things include it. That'll be like me knowing that somebody MK Ultra'd me. And my family asking me for the truth. But the way that the MK Ultra work, I can't really give them the truth directly because my MK Ultra got me speaking the truth in codes. So I can't bypass my programming. So what I do is after I tell my family the truth, I then tell them, please prove what I just said for yourself. That's me overriding my MK Ultra, so to speak. Because the Bible is written with truth in it, but it's been revised and interpreted and distorted where the truth is distorted. But the people that wrote the Bible, they knew that the truth would be distorted, which is why they wrote to you in the book, prove shit. Because the Bible know if the truth was just hook, line, and sinker, where if you just read it and that's the truth, you don't gotta prove nothing. That's easy. Just read the truth and accept it. The Bible know that it's a book of truth, but it know that the truth is coded within it, which is instead of the Bible telling you, hey, decipher me, the Bible is saying, read me with diligence or prove all things. That'll be like me telling my family, hey, everything I just told you, prove it for yourself. They would know I just gave them a code and they can't take it seriously, literally. They gotta decipher it. If my son say, Daddy, where you been? And I say, hey, I'm in the place that smell like cotton candy and boom, boom, boom. I give a bunch of hints, but I don't give the exact place. I give an abstract, vague codes, and I tell my son, figure it out and you'll get the truth. But I ain't just give my son the truth directly. I gave him a bunch of hints and codes, and I told him, if you figure that out, you'll get the truth. That's what the Bible telling you when it say prove all things or seek diligently. The Bible is saying, yeah, I got the truth, but it ain't gonna be easy. You got to do some deciphering, some decoding, because the church got a hold of me and tampered with me. And it's so deep that the prophets, the Gnostics that wrote the Bible knew that the truth would be distorted over time. So they wrote inside of the book, hey, read me, but decipher me. Boy, that is some deep stuff. That is some, and it's to a point where you can't make no excuse. Because when you say, I didn't know, then guess what the writers of the Bible gonna say? But we told you to seek diligently. We didn't just say seek. We said seek diligently. Diligently mean extreme. It means that to get the truth in this world of lies, you gonna have to really put some work in. That's right. It means, bro, if you want the truth in your lifetime, the people, when you die, the ancestors gonna look at you in your face and they gonna be like, boy, you really wanted the truth. Because we was throwing everything at you in that place to keep you away from the truth. The system of government that's trying to keep y'all from the truth, that's a program that the ancestors running from heaven. They want to know who's really a God and who's a devil, and you can't cheat this. You can't lie with this. When the ancestors put you in the duat and the simulation and split you to good and bad version and run this game called capitalism, you're going to have a battle within yourself of good and bad. The war of Armageddon is take place within here. And if you want to be a god, the angel got to win because it got the wings. It can get up out of here. The devil don't. The devil got a pitchfork because if the devil stay here, it got to fight in this world of Armageddon. Food is scarce. It's capitalistic. It's barbaric. So you got to choose which version. See, the thing is this all a test. It's all a test. When you became a pure beam of consciousness in heaven, they didn't know whether you was going to be good or bad. So they dropped you down here in duality and seeing what you, and they watching your ass. And the reason they want to keep you dumb, because if you know this stuff, then guess what? If you know this from day one, which no human have, every human got to go through an ignorance period, just like every butterfly got to go through a cocoon or a veil. The ignorance period is your honesty period. Because when they take all your knowledge away, you think this place is real, you start acting out who you really are. You can't lie. It's like this, right? If I tell everybody the moment you born, hey, you being tested, man, everybody gonna do good just because they know they being tested. The universe want you to make the choice out of free will. Not under, like a police say, I'm not forcing you or nothing, because in court that'll get thrown out. The same laws apply with the universe. You can't be under duress. No one forcing you to do this. This choice was yours. You can't blame it. If you end up going to hell, which is reincarnating as a dumbass here in the flesh versus ascending to a God, the universe got it to where you can't blame nobody. That's why you was in ignorance. Because if somebody tell you, look, man, we finna put you in a test to see if you really good or bad. And if you be bad, this gonna happen. If you be good, that's threatening you. That's what the church did. The church said, if you be bad, you gonna burn in hell. If you do, that ain't what Gnosticism was. Gnosticism was more of a blind initiation into a spiritual cult, if you will, which is what heaven is. It's a cult, a good cult, that you gotta be initiated into it. So ignorance is the initiation process. All of the Gnostics, you will see the veil in a lot of Gnostic symbolism. It start off in blindfolders. And that's the Satan part. The one that put the veil is devil. The veil. The one put you in darkness. Now, when you in darkness, you got to find your light. And finding your light means that you're born into a world that you think is real. And the Gnostics, the ancestors, want you to think that. They plan a trick on you. Because with this kind of mind, you will honestly be what it is you really want to be. They don't want it to be, it ain't easy to climb a mountain. And climbing the stairway to heaven is climbing a mountain. So what they're doing is saying, look, we want people who really want to do good. They really want to be gods. They really want to be in heaven. And the only way we know if they really want to do it, we're going to put them in a world where evil rules. And it's basically saying, if you still choose good after being surrounded by all this evil, and this world even rewards you for being evil, you can be rich if you're more evil and cutthroat and don't care who you hurt. In this game, the evil people make it to the top of the world. Not the good-hearted kind old woman. She barely collect SSI, and the pastor pork chop young ass deceiving people in the dang on Benz and the Bentley. The rapper, not the righteous soul. It's a test. The test is the gods want to know who's really fit for heaven. Put it this way, right? It's like Mount Everest. If you're if 20 people start climbing Mount Everest, the 2 people that make it to the top, guess what we can say? Boy, y'all really wanted to make it to the top, didn't you? Do you know how hard it is to climb Mount Everest? Do you know how many times you're gonna want to turn around in the middle of your climb, of your ascension? If you make it to the top of Mount Everest, you really wanted to fucking be there. Ain't no question about it. You don't get to the top of that by mistake or playing around. It is a filtering process. The people who make it to the top of Mount Everest, they really, really wanted to be there. How I know? They made it. In order for you to make it to the top of Mount Everest, you know what? You had to want it real bad. Because it's a hard climb. The stairway to heaven is the same. It ain't easy. The church wanted to make it easy by saying you can do what you want to do and Christ gonna forgive you. That's a lie. In ancient Gnostic teachings, it was a grueling process of self-mastery and working on yourself. It was like when I stopped smoking cigarettes. Me stopping smoking cigarettes was like Jesus being crucified on the cross. You have to master yourself. And when I stopped smoking cigarettes, I can't explain to you the confidence that I got, which let me know I can do anything I want to do. See, we start to believe in ourselves more and more when we do little things, because the little things seem so big when it's unaccomplished. When I'm addicted to cigarettes, it seemed like a big Mount Everest. Then when I get off cigarettes and stop smoking, it's like, oh, that was a little hill. That wasn't even a big mountain. Guess what? I was small. The moment I grew and expanded my consciousness, that big mountain looked like a little hill. But think about it. It looks like a little hill because it's behind me now. This is the science of vanishing point. When I'm right in front of something or going toward it, it gets bigger. But when I put it behind me and conquer it and walk away, it gets smaller and smaller as I move away from it. It was a nothing burger, man. It was a non-factor. You look back at all of your problems that you conquered and you realize the shit wasn't even as big as you thought. You was just small. And the problem grew you. The problem made you bigger. The problem is like air for a balloon. It blow you up. You can't grow up without problems. Anybody that ain't have no problems coming up, they're a little bitty child. Show me a rich kid.